but that is a concern about where that might go. And then the local numbers are estimates only. The numbers I shared with you, that's what the state is telling us. Our reality may be more, it may be less. And it's difficult if you're projecting for the future based on numbers and our reality is different, how quickly can we get the funding to address those issues? I'm now opening up for any questions that you might have.
Chief, thank you. This is really good background information for us. I know it's when this was first starting to come out a while back, there was a lot of concern about what was going to happen at the local level. We heard the horror stories of this opening the gates and prisoners coming home and et cetera. But I really appreciate the level of cooperation that we have here in Sonoma County that we have had for a while. I think it really helped a lot in getting to where we are now and be able to manage this. And I appreciate, too, that we are looking at things on a county-by-county basis, because there, too, the level of cooperation within counties and cities is, it does vary within all the counties. So I think we do have to be very appreciative here in Sonoma County and Santa Rosa that we do have that level of cooperation to roll this out and see where it takes us. So thank you very much for a very thorough presentation.
I would agree with what your comments were, because it's not culture shock here. I think there are some counties that it's culture shock. We have to be at the same table and actually work together. And again, for me, like I said, of our 7-member executive committee, 1 city guy, 6 county folks. And it can be somewhat intimidating, but I never had that feeling. There's that trust has been built up over time. So
and instead looking at it as an opportunity, which is what it
absolutely is.
Presented itself. Councilmember Vos-Dupre.
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor. And I absolutely concur. Having served on the Mayor's Prevention and Intervention Gang Task Force, the people who are on that, and that includes you and others, I do think that's a tremendous collaboration, and I'm certainly certain that it's a model for other cities and counties to work together on it. So that's definitely more than a feather in our cap. I had a couple of questions on the slide that you had on Community Corrections Partnership. And it says Superior Court presiding judge or his or her a designee. So have there been any meetings of that particular partnership group yet?
As far as one of the subcommittees? Oh, absolutely. This has been ongoing for several months now.
So does Judge Dana Simmons usually attend?
Absolutely.
Oh, good. Okay. Has she named a designee?
Well, actually, she is the designee because I believe Judge Gary Nadler is a presiding judge, and I think he has designated her as the person on that.
Okay. And then I had a question on the Day Reporting Center. So is that mandatory that when they're released, and it is that they're released back to the county where they were sentenced?
Yes.
Is it mandatory that they report every day to the Day Reporting Center?
It depends upon the caseload.
So
it's a concept. With the RFP, they're looking now for the service provider.
Right.
Do you want to run a day reporting center? And then we will negotiate with the county about what services we want provided at the day reporting center. So depending upon the individual, what the crime was, it may be, you need to be at the day reporting center for 8 hours of programming, or it may just be 2, depending upon who the person is and what they believe is the most efficient way of changing the behaviors.
I see. Okay. But at this point, we do not have a day reporting center.
Correct.
And then 2 more. The homeless providers like Catholic Charities and Jeff Gilman with the Rescue Mission, have they been brought along to understand what you're going through, what we're going through?
We've had discussions. They're not part of the CCP, and I personally have not had discussions with them because, quite frankly, once we got down to what the dollar amounts were, there's a lot more levels, a lot more need than actually money. And so we don't have a homeless services provider specifically identified for any of the funding.
But I'm sure they will be brought into to a level of understanding and comfort and whatever.
If what they provide is an evidence-based program or practice.
Yeah, exactly. And then the evidence-based, I know that the county's upstream program, that's all evidence-based. So which then goes to my last point about, are you working, or is this particular Community Corrections Partnership working with our city manager and with Ms. Ferguson for letters of support, such as to Senator Noreen Evans or whatever?
We have not had any conversations about that. I know, talking with the sheriff at the state sheriff level, they have been having the discussions at the state level to try to get that funding identified, make it consistent, so they don't have to do this every year, fight for the funding.
Exactly, because that inequity, such as what the example cited as far as Kern and the way you explained it, it's just backwards, and it just seems to be begging for our legislators to become actively involved in this, and I'm quite sure that our representatives would be very supportive of what you said.
Because I believe the total figure for the state was over $460 million.
Exactly.
It's
Exactly, and it helps them to be productive people, again, back in the community, productive parents, if that's it. And Friends Outside, are they involved at all in this?
Not to my knowledge. They
Not
may
to-
be through their work with the sheriff's department.
Could be. Okay, thank you.
Vice Mayor Sawyer.
Thank you, Mayor. Chief, not that the state would come to the cities with a finely oiled machine all ready to go and totally successful, or that they wouldn't do that, but assuming that it's not as finely oiled as we would hope, what's the check-in process? What is their strategy for taking their initial program and then looking at what's not working, because something's not going to work?
At the state level?
At the dictates coming down from the state, and this program, where there will be corrections that need to be made. What will be our process for relief as they see the different counties that have problems dealing with this new paradigm? What's the program as far as changes?
So the check and balance is really at the local level. So we're continuing to meet to find out what's working, what's not working, because we're just taking our, I don't want to say our best guess, but best stab based on what we think, what the state has told us, and then what's working, what's not working. But it's not one, there's not a realignment committee at the state level. It's at each local county.
So it's just the money that's coming down. They said, you come up with your own program, we're going to give you so much money.
How much we're going to give you, you guys come up with your
Come up
program.
with it.
So what we've also done, because I'm the chief representative on this, we've also shared our plans amongst the state chiefs. And municipal chiefs represent about 80% of the population of California. So we've shared all of our data so all the chiefs understand what they're doing in each of the different counties. And there's a lot of different variety. And again, just based on some of the comments that I've seen posted, that chiefs are posting, the collaboration is not there in every county. It's almost been adversarial. We even saw down in LA at one point, the chief of police said he was going to start doing some of the probation tasks, until I'm sure he looked into it a little bit more, saying police and probation, those are two different functions. And he said, no, we're going to give that to the probation department because that's what they do. But it's at the local level, the check and balance.
Great, thank you.
And that's the other thing. This is an interim plan, and we've all been in agreement. It's a 9-month plan. We're making our best guess at it. So as changes need to be made, they will be made. I'm confident of it.
Great.
Thank you. Other questions? Councilman Wysocki?
Thank you. Thank you, Chief, for the information. I appreciate it because, yes, those stories were out there about all the prisoners being trucked down to the counties. I want to go back to your allocation example, specifically us versus Kern, Sonoma County versus Kern. I got the impression, because I'm assuming our conviction rates or conviction numbers are similar because our population numbers are similar. You'd highlighted we're getting less money because our sentencing is less harsh than theirs.
Well, I wouldn't characterize less harsh.
Well,
We send fewer
local.
people to state prison. And the way it's been characterized, the way we've had some discussions, we'll send it to the state, let them fix our problem. And I think we take ownership of it, and we have more programming here, even in the jail, to help deal with some of the behaviors, because they're coming back locally. And that's kind of the analogy.
No, I agree they're coming back, but I mean, I see the difference in money is $10 million, and that's because we're, as you say, we want to take more ownership of our local problem. So is that a flaw in the statute by the state that perhaps there should be a different definition as to how the funding happens?
In my opinion, it is. And there are ongoing dialogues, because, again, this formula was by CSAC. They're the ones who defined it. And so I know, listening to the county...
And again, who's CSAC?
I think it's California State Association of Counties. I believe that's who they... Listening to the county administrator, apparently they had some rather robust discussions about that. And if you look at LA getting 31%, that's a tremendous amount of money. So what's fair that's going to meet the needs of all 58 counties? Not that easy of a task. And they're getting a lot of feedback from municipal law enforcement saying that really wasn't fair. Why don't you reward those of us that are addressing the issue and dealing with it?
I'd like to see some more information on that, some wording, so we could forward that to Sacramento, to make that.
If you'd like, I could give you the whole list of all 58 counties, if
Well,
that'd be helpful. or what?
I'd like more than just the, you know, I'd like what you're basing your conclusion on. That would help me make the case to some of our local legislatures is what I'm looking for to do.
Okay.
And also, is there a relationship between the 3.6 million that we got back and the 4.2 that we see on that example?
4.2 is a 12-month figure, and so the funding actually was a 9-month because the delayed implementation of realignment of October instead of at the beginning.
9 months, that'd be 9/12, but this is 6/7, so.
There's also a couple different figures in
Is
there
there some
about one-time costs for startup. Because within there, if you saw on the next sheet, there's,
No worries, just checking, that's what I do.
yeah, that's why on the slide 16, it's got all the dollars, and some of them are for a consultant to help do some of that, and there are some
Very
other
well.
one-time costs.
Thank you, I'd appreciate that information. Appreciate your report.
And Mayor, if you'd like, the police chief and I can work on crafting some kind of a letter that might go to our state officials, expressing our concerns about this disparity.
Yes, I suspect that would be happening along the way as we continue to unfold this and look at how we as a city can advocate for some of our needs here at the local level. Absolutely, letters would definitely help. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent suggestion, thank you.
Good. Chief, thank you very much.
Thank you.
If there's no other questions, so we will adjourn our study session, and let's take 5 minutes to rearrange for our joint meeting with our San Jose City School Board.
I don't know, I don't think so.
We're just going to bring some chairs in between.
Okay, we're
Oh,
gonna.
between us?
I think so. I think we can do that.
So I don't have to.
And we're just going to interweave here. We're not going to separate, right? Good, good. Yeah, just interweave it. Bring the chairs.
No, this is as good as it gets right here, I think.
Anyway, I'm with you. Hi, Bill.
How are you? I guess we need a little more room up here.
Oh, we do. As Scott said, we're gonna be a little crunched together here,
So there's,
which is all right.
But we can do that.
Nice to see you.
well, I looked at
Must
this
be
and I'm, oh my
cozy.
God, this is gonna be terrible, but then I
Right?
realized public comment only.
So you had another full day at work and
I don't want to.
have to just put that stuff to work.
Favorite member is the next.
Is this a legitimate spot?
That's a legitimate spot, I'll just move right here.
No. Well, I don't know, they might have one. That's fine, that's all I need.
I don't believe so.
It certainly would.
You can sit either place, that's fine.
Comment from one of the members?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
No, you go ahead. You let me know when you're ready.
Susan, don't say that. Don't say it. No, don't say that. Don't say that.
My experience, there's been one since I've been on the board, and I think they've talked about doing it quarterly, but I'm not sure if it's necessary. I can ask Esperanza. Second, one of the three, I don't have a thing that I there's some overlap. Question of how much
Yeah.
we can do together.
I think you did.
Always have. Can you have one? Yeah. Yeah, there you go. Update on fees. Okay, thank you very much. Here I am, Ron Christoph. Very nice to meet you.
You gotta stop meeting like this, huh?
And this is Richard, as our student board representative from Maria Carrillo.
All right.
Yeah, it's a good man.
Stepping up.
Pairing with all the college apps and stuff.
Yeah, there you go.
Just turned in my, finished my second UC out, UC essay, so getting ready to turn that into, and then focusing more.
You'll have, once the semester's over and everything else is done, you'll have a chance to take a couple of deep breaths. This is a busy time.
First semester of your senior year?
Yeah.
So the SAT is in your past or in your future?
Good afternoon and welcome to the joint special meeting of the Santa Rosa City School Board and the Santa Rosa City Council. We'll begin with the roll call, please, beginning with the City Council.
Let the record reflect that all city council members are present.
Thank you. And the School Board?
I'm assuming let the record reflect that all school board members are present.
Thank you very much. And at this time, we'll move into public comment. I have one card from Mr. Jack Osborne. Mr. Osborne?
Jack Osborne, 5636 Dale, Monte Court. I always have a problem with this. What you say here is you have public comment period right now, and you have things on the document which are not explained and not available on the website when they look at the city council thing. Now, how in the world can I comment before you say what you're going to say? So I object to saying it, that because I don't know whether you're going to allow comments on 1, 2, and 3. It doesn't say. And on top of that, on the agenda, it says 3.4, future meeting topics. Discussion opportunity and other topics. Now, how can I possibly know how to talk on that? Now, you might not know, the school board members know I'm known as Brown Act Jack, in that I like to have you follow the Brown Act. Now, the Brown Act requires that you have sufficient information on the agenda so that the public knows what you're going to talk about. Oh, how can I possibly know what you're going to talk about on other topics? That, in my opinion, which of course I'm very humble and very, never wrong, might be a violation of the Brown Act because there's nothing there. In fact, the Brown Act, a judge has recently said you're not allowed to put blanket things on like that. However, perhaps it is one of those extensions of the school boards and city councils that really don't want the public to know what they're going to talk about and don't want the public input on these things. You noticed a tremendous crowd here tonight compared to last week and the week before. But that might come later. Anyway, thank you very much for listening, and I will be speaking later. Thank you very much, and I won't say goodbye because I'll be back. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Osborne. And clearly, I think as we discuss some of the items, if you wish to speak on those, we'll allow you to do that as well. There are no secrets here this afternoon. So let's go ahead and move into our joint study session. We do have a couple of items to go over. And how will we introduce these? Who will be introducing the items? Thank you.
Our first item is the update on city charter review and discussion of Section 29 Santa Rosa City School Districts, and our city attorney, Caroline Fowler, will present that item.
Thank you.
Mayor and city council members and school board members, as you may be aware, the city of Santa Rosa is currently going through its charter review process. This is a process we go through at least every 10 years as required under our city charter. And the city council has appointed a committee of 21 citizens to be on that committee and to review the city charter. In connection with that review, the Charter Review Committee has asked me to solicit input from the school board regarding Section 29 of the city charter, which I have provided to you, which outlines the Santa Rosa school districts. I have not had an opportunity at this point to research the history of when this section came into the charter, which I will be doing. The Charter Review Committee is taking up some of the more controversial or more topics that are generating a little more interest than whether the school board section stays in the charter. But we did want to bring this to you so that you can have your own discussion about whether you have any thoughts as to whether this should stay in the city charter. At this point, I'm not sure what benefit it provides you, if any, or whether there's any detriment to it being in there from your perspective, whether there's been any changes since the last charter review that you would propose that the Charter Review Committee consider any modifications to this charter language, or whether it should just remain as is. And so the Charter Committee asked me to get your input. I was going to send you a letter, but since we had this meeting, I thought I'd take the opportunity to just mention to you publicly, and I'm happy to answer any questions. We're not expecting you to give us a response today. And if there's any information that I can provide to assist you when you do discuss this, please feel free to let me know, and I'd be happy to provide whatever information I can.
Could you describe the timeline by which you need comment from the Board of Education?
Sure. This is a process. We expect that the Charter Review Committee will complete its work hopefully by the end of May, beginning of June, and would then be coming to the City Council for the City Council to determine what, if any, items it would place on the ballot in November. So I think that at this point, the Scheduling Committee has not scheduled a specific date for the school board item. My guess would be that would be towards the end of our work, but obviously the sooner the better, but it's not, something that we need in 30 days. So if you can put it on an agenda after the holidays, I think that would be fine.
Certainly we'll do that. There may be comment, though, from the board members initially here. Mr. Carl?
Sure, thank you.
I should mention, Mr. Carl is one of our Charter Review Committee members.
Yeah, so this is no surprise to me. Actually, I asked when we went through the list of items on the charter review, or from the charter that we would look at, that this specifically be one that we held out and had discussion about, because changes were made in 2002. And we have now an ad hoc committee that is looking at issues of representation and how our district operates its elections. So I'm hopeful that that work is completed within the next 60 days and returned to the school board, such that if there is in fact any request for any change that would be required in the charter, that we'd have it well in advance of the time frame that's listed. So we're on top of this, and we will certainly meet that time frame and get back to you anything that we think is important.
And I should also add that your other board member, Donna Jay, is also on our Charter Review Committee.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. Other comments from the board?
Oh, from the board.
I'll turn it over to the mayor.
Thank you. Council, any comments? Councilmember Gorin?
Well, when I served on the Charter Review decades ago, I had some question about why this is even in here in the first place, and if it was the recommendation to simply strike all of this, what would that do to the function of the school district? I can't imagine very much. We may have had a closer political connection at one point, but I'm wondering what this is all about.
Yeah, that was my question too, since the city really does not have any control over the school boards. I'm not sure why it remains. I think at one point in time there may have been a reason why it was in the city charter or a need. As I said, I'm going to try to research what the history of that coming in. You know, if there's no harm in it being, and depending on what other ballot measures we may or may not be putting on, you know, we may not really want to deal with this if the school board doesn't feel it's an issue and it really doesn't harm us to have it in the charter. On the other hand, if we're doing a ballot measure, which has been done in the past, kind of a cleanup item, and there is some desire to remove it, we could certainly consider that. The Charter Review Committee could consider that.
Councilmember Vosipre?
Yes, I just had a question. I'm only finding this one page, so does that mean that this is inclusive of all of the information on Section 29?
That's correct.
Thank
That's
you.
the only provisions on Section 29.
Thank you.
Rather than give you the entire city charter,
Right,
I just
right.
gave them the section about school boards.
Right, but as Mr. Osborne indicated, this information is certainly on our website, the entire document.
The city charter is correct, yeah.
Thank you.
And just to clarify on the question Mr. Osborne raised, I think as the mayor pointed out, Section 3.4 is merely a discussion by the board and the council about what topics you might like to see on a future agenda. There would not be any substantive discussion or decisions on those future topics by either the school board or by the city council. It's just a discussion as to what types of things would you like to see on a future agenda, and certainly the public would have an opportunity to comment on those items when they are actually discussed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor, other questions? Councilmember Wysocki?
Thank you. Just really quickly, I assume that there'll be a cost to putting this on the ballot, and would that be part of the future discussions?
Yes, I think, you know, that will be certainly the council's discussion when it comes to the council in terms of looking at the entirety of the recommendations of the Charter Review Committee. And as I said, there's a number of questions about how those might be placed as ballot measures.
But it's just the council's discussion on the cost?
Yes.
Just thought we might get a little hand here. That's
Well, I think that typically the Charter Review Committee has not made recommendations about how the council should place items on the ballot. They've just made recommendations as to what should be changed in the charter. And so, like I said, sometimes there have been like one ballot measure which has been a cleanup, which says the charter's amended the following sections, and those are usually things that are either obsolete or no longer necessary, which might be this section. There's no longer a need to have it. We're just deleting it
Right.
because it's obsolete. Whereas if you had another issue such as district elections, you might want that to be a standalone ballot initiative as opposed to buried in with a lot of other
Of course.
technical changes.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think we're done with comments on that. So the school board will send direction to the city attorney for the charter review, correct? Thank you. Let's move on to 3.2, discussion on grand jury recommendations. And who's going to take the lead on this?
I'll be taking that one also. The next item is discussion of grand jury recommendations. As you all recall, the grand jury issued a report several months ago, and one of the recommendations that was that not only the cities but the local school districts also consider the idea of school district unification or consolidation to improve education and to look at issues of financial sustainability. One of the recommendations that came forward to the city was that the city council should perhaps initiate such studies on behalf of the school district or request that it be done. And the city council responded that, number one, it did not feel that it was in the purview of the city council to go forward with such a recommendation, but that we certainly would be inquiring and asking for information from the school board in that we are meeting now on a regular basis between the city council and the school board. And so this is a time, we are aware that the school district has initiated some review of these issues, and we'd like to hear what that status is.
Good afternoon. We have provided you with a packet that has our letterhead on it, a discussion of the grand jury recommendations. And within that packet,